Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to cover a very nice attacking chess game, and we're going to dissect the lessons that you can learn and apply to your games from this one. So if you love attacking, this is right up your alley. If not, then this should hopefully inspire you to come up with some amazing sacrifices. So let's just quickly go back to this position. This is the final position of the game. The bishop essentially just checkmates a king who's stuck on the edge of the board, and we're going to see how we got here and all the lessons we can take and apply to our games. All right, so e4, e6, d4, d5, the French defense. And just to introduce the players, white is Pachman and black is Eckert, and this was played in 1940, so it's a pretty old game, but it's a nice one. It's got a very old romantic style about it. So knight c3, knight f6, this is the classical variation of the French defense. And here white played bishop to g5. And here black's best move just for your future games is just to trade the pawns. You end up with a semi-open position, and black is going to play c5 later on where it's a bit more suitable and just look for equalization that way. But what black played in this game was the other move, which is bishop to e7. The only problem is it allows white to close off the position and really cramp black up with e5. Now after the knight drops back to d7, white played one of the main moves in the position, h4. And this is a very, very nice move. I'd definitely recommend playing it or trying it out in your games, because what you're essentially doing here is after black trades the bishop and takes your pawn, so essentially black's won a pawn or you've given up a pawn, you end up with a very nice active position as white. So you've got an open file for your rook. The setup you're aiming for is your queen's going to come to g4 and apply pressure on the king side this way. Your bishop's going to come to d3, and your knight is most likely going to come to h3. Also, you're going to have a very nice square on b5 for your knight, where you're threatening forks on c7, but also if black plays the move c5, which is very common, it's one of black's most common ideas in the French defense, you're going to have a very nice hole or outpost for your knight on d6, because black is without a dark squared bishop, and that's the cost of winning a pawn for black, is you're going to give up a lot of control of these dark squares. So how did the game continue? The game continued with knight to h3, and just to take one step back, you guys might be thinking, why not knight to f3? Well, you are blocking access to your queen's best square, which is on g4. So again, think about the attacking principle here is you want to look at where do all of my pieces want to be as the game progresses. And the queen wants to be on g4, so we don't want to block the queen in. So knight to h3, winning a tempo on the queen. So black has a few moves here, h6, h4, e7, and d8 for the queen. Couple of pros and cons for each one. Moving it to d8 and e7 allows black to defend the queen side a little bit. Moving it to h4 allows black to prevent white from castling queenside easily. And h4 is the computer's recommendation. They're all roughly equal. H4 is probably slightly the best move, but h6 was played anyway. And white continued with the bishop coming out to d3. Again, very natural. We're starting to apply pressure on the king side. Later down the line, we'll see how it transpires. Black played g6, and the purpose of this move, you'd probably imagine, is the queen needs some sort of an escape square, because down the line, once white is able to connect the rooks, a move like knight to g5 can really quickly trap that queen, and white could win the queen. So maybe black is trying to proactively give his queen an escape square on g7. The problem is, again, think about it from an attacking player's perspective. That e7 bishop or dark squared bishop was traded off, and now we're just weakening these dark squares with the move g6. So f6 is now going to be a hole, and as an attacking player, you want to look for these color complex gaps in your opponent's position. So what does white play here? Queen to g4. Again, we're just trying to get our pieces out. We don't want to rush anything. We're trying to get our pieces out, trying to castle. We're going to have to play f4 before we castle to block to to block the attack on our king, to block the queen's sight. Black played c5, which isn't the best move. Again, where in the last couple of moves, black has given up control of the the d6 and the f6 squares, and we should be pretty happy as the attacking position here because black is weakening his own position. So white played f4, just giving that e5 pawn a little bit more support. And then black played c takes d4. Now, let's just pause here quickly and talk about where, from a principle perspective, black is going wrong. Black is essentially not prioritizing his own piece development. Black should be trying to get these pieces out as quickly as possible, getting that king to safety, getting that bishop out somehow, because that bishop is just blocked in by its own pawns and knight. So black's pieces are tangled up. Black is not actually solving that problem with c takes d4. In fact, all it does is it forces white's knight to jump to its most natural square anyway. So black essentially loses time and white continues their attack. So that's a red flag. If you are defending or if you're attacking, you can spot those things where, that doesn't seem right. My opponent isn't really doing what they should be doing. They're wasting time, and that gives me, the attacking player, more time. And once you got more time, you can start looking for ways to sacrifice material to gain some more time, as we'll see in this game. King to d8, so essentially just stopping the fork, winning the rook. And now white's got a couple of options here. So the most natural looking move is to castle queenside, after which white just has a very nice position. Knight g5 is coming with the rooks being connected, and knight to d6, jumping into f7. All of these are natural moves. The problem with castling is black will take on e5, making the most of this pin, and black is going to start unwinding. So we're not going to castle. One of our best moves is probably knight to d6, but in this case white played knight to g5, sacrificing the rook. So pretty interesting move. Not technically the best move in the position, but it's still enough to win. Black took the rook, and after king f2, black took a second rook. So white is 2 rooks down, but let's just go back a couple of moves, because from here it's forced checkmate. So where did black go wrong? So after king f2, one thing you should keep an eye out for when you're defending is try to trade queens. And likewise, if you're attacking, you want to keep the queens on the board because it increases your attacking chances. In this position, after winning that rook, black's only move is actually to move the queen back to h5, because after the queen trade, white wins the rook back. But now after knight c6, just giving the rook a bit of breathing space, and bishop to h7, white still has a slight advantage, but black has much better drawing chances because we've simplified the position, we've traded queens, and down the line, black could even consider sacrifice on e5, just really crippling white's center and maybe having some chances that way. Nonetheless, this was black's best option, trading queens as the defensive side. And because black didn't trade the queens, black got greedy and took the second rook. We see a very spectacular finish. So knight takes f7 check. We're breaking through. And you can kind of see another red flag is all of white's pieces are on active squares, even when that knight was on g5. Active squares. And black's pieces are just tangled and not doing anything. So even though black is 2 rooks up, it doesn't really matter because there's just so many weak dark squares and all of white's pieces are in the attack. So here, white sees that he can even sacrifice another knight, because now that allows this knight to come in with check. So always look for ways to gain time, even if it means giving up some more material. Of course, you got to be careful because you don't want to let black escape, because then you are a knight and 2 rooks down. But in this case, white has checkmate. So the knight and the queen stop the king from escaping, and this e-pawn stops the king from escaping this way as well, or the queen as well. Black's king is essentially in this little square with an escape square on h6. How do we take advantage of this? We keep chasing the king, look for checks. If the king drops back to g8, we're going to checkmate on f8. So the king is forced to come up this way. And now you can kind of see the king is running out of squares very, very quickly. In this position, white delivered a couple more checks. Knight g5, check with the queen. And then after knight takes e6, we are tightening the screws. We're threatening checkmate because that knight is taking away the g7 escape square. And checkmate is threatened on h4 and on g5. So black can't play something like queen to h1 to prevent checkmate on h4 because we're going to checkmate on g5. Black's only real chance is knight f6, and this actually does set up a nice little trick, because if white takes the knight here, black has gained time and now takes the knight with his bishop, and white's best is, funnily enough, to just walk away with a draw after repeating moves. So white doesn't want to fall for that, and instead plays queen to g7 check, forcing the king to h5. And only now we take the knight on f6 because we're threatening queen to g5 check. So checkmate. So the bishop cannot take the knight. The pawn comes up to defend that square. However, the final piece jumps into the attack. The bishop drops back to e2 and checkmates the king. So a few very nice lessons here, and hopefully this inspires you guys to play some of these more aggressive type of styles, and just inspire you to play a bit more sacrificial attacking chess and win some cool games in your journey. And last but not least, I should say, after nearly 100 videos, bit of an announcement. I've just launched a little bit of a website, so the link is in the description if you want to check it out and let me know what you think, if it's good, if it's bad, what we can do to improve it, etc, etc. Otherwise, there should be a couple of videos that pop up on the end screen here, so just click on one of them to continue watching some more chess educational videos.